Welcome to today's episode. We're talking episode 7. Today is all about what and how should I eat. So before we get started, I'm just going to give you a sweet little blurb that I wrote off the top of my head. So here you go. All right, so my name is Vicky. I'm 37. I used to be almost 400 pounds. I've lost over 200 pounds, and I have never, ever throughout this entire journey counted a single calorie. I have never obsessed about the restriction with my dietary choices all through this 2-year, now coming into my almost 4th year weight loss journey, but now being in maintenance. But anyway, what is my tool, my secret? Is this a pill or is this surgery, a fad, any kind of injections, any kind of other shenanigans or etc.? The answer to that is no. The only tool I focused on, one big tool that caused such a rippling effect on my entire life, my overall health, my total emotional well-being, and my mental outlook on everyday life. Oh, and helped me to shed 203.8 pounds, please. Woo! What's my secret? Well, this is what the total journey that I've got here that I love sharing with you guys. It's my fasting focused lifestyle. And you can have all this too. And I can help. If you need any help, support, resource all along the way, I've walked the walk, and I love to talk the talk and share and help you guys to realize that you don't have to stay stuck. You don't have to stay the before. You can have and be your after. Because I believe in you, even if you don't. Welcome to the Fasting Focused Lifestyle Podcast, where each week I will be discussing all things fasting and how it can become the most valuable tool in your personal toolkit so that you can live a long, healthy, and meaningful life. I'm your host, Vicky Sharon, and thank you for joining me. Welcome! Episode 7, we're talking what and how should I eat? So if at any point of your fasting journey, maybe even before you even started fasting, you're freaking out, you're thinking, oh my gosh, I have to overly restrict everything I eat. Oh my gosh, I have to eat keto. Oh my gosh, I have to eat carnivore. Oh my gosh, I have to eat paleo. Whole30, this, that. Oh boy, that is a lot. Whew. If you came into the knowledge, understanding, the excitement of implementing a fasting method, maybe you were inspired by my journey, maybe you heard or saw somebody else and you're like, oh my gosh, fasting, oh, I gotta try this. And to think that you've got to do the fasting and you've got to do some crazy, overly restrictive calorie counting, diet choice, obsessive behavior. Amongst everything else, you may also be thinking, which we're not going to talk too much about this episode, but overly excessive workouts that maybe scare you or really, honestly, I've been there, intimidate you beyond your means, to where you kind of feel imprisoned and you think like, oh my gosh, I can't do that. My business, my second avenue of being a small business owner, I've called it the fasting focused lifestyle for this very reason, because fasting, as I've said many times, and I'll continue to shout this from the rooftops, aka my podcast microphone, that fasting should be the focus. Fasting should be the primary focus, because I feel, and again, this is from my experience and all the literature and everything that I've read along the way, with fasting being the focus, everything else, all these other mindful, healthier choices will come a lot easier. It's going to be a lot easier to stick to. It's going to feel like more instinctively of a choice to you. It's going to feel way more common sense. It's going to be easier to stick to long term. The more we flex this fasting muscle, the more you practice this daily habit of integrating a fasting lifestyle, whether it's, doing your intermittent for your 16/8, building up from there, whatever your method is. Again, as a side, if you need additional support, coaching, consultation services, direction, guidance, wisdom, insight, I'm your girl. I got you. Let me know. I have appointments open, thefastingfocusedlifestyle.com with my calendar and everything on there. business is getting fantastic and busy, and I love it because the primary focus is always about you guys and making sure that you guys know that you can join me. You can be that after here too with me, and I want that for you guys. All right, enough with the chit chat. Let's get into it. So, as I previously mentioned, we're talking about what and how should I eat. So, we go into any kind of lifestyle modification or concentrated effort to shed weight. And the first thing that we think is that we have to overly restrict or drastically change the way that we're eating. But with fasting at the forefront, again, fasting as the focus primarily, my first 2 weeks, just as an example, my first 2 weeks of implementing a 16-8 method. So I fasted a total of 16 hours, and my eating window, I stress this, window. So it's not as soon as that 16th hour hits, you don't just like stand into your fridge and just start inhaling everything for that solid 8 hours. It doesn't work like that. When you're ready to break your fast, the first thing I have learned along the way, along with personal practice and knowledge and insight, guidance that I've learned along the way, the best bit of advice that I can give you when you're breaking your fast is to utilize some kind of dietary fat. If you prefer like some guacamole, a handful of nuts, maybe a chunk of cheese. If you're a meat eater, having a piece of a piece of like, I would say, don't have to be like too lean, but moderately, have a good amount of dietary fat in there. It's hard for me to recommend like meat products because I don't eat meat, but sensibly speaking, you don't want to overeat when you're initially breaking that fast. Something about like palm size should be just fine, because all you're doing when you're breaking your fast is you're switching on and waking up your digestive system. You're letting your body know, hey, I am done in this fasting window for right now, and I'm getting ready to eat and digest the food. And as much as I've done this myself, and this is something that I have learned along the way, that I know the way that my body feels and reacts, and I don't like the way that I feel when I break my fast with a meal immediately, because I get that lethargy, you get that kind of just food coma almost instantly after you're finished eating, similar to, Thanksgiving holiday for us here in the United States. And that feeling of just lethargy and feeling like, oh my gosh, I could go take a nap. To kind of help you guys understand why you're feeling that way, if you eat too big when you break that fast initially, you have to think about it like this. Okay, so when you're in that fasted state, you're probably feeling really light in your feet. Even if you've just started, you're probably feeling like, woo, it feels great. It feels great. As long as you're keeping yourself busy and away from food in that fasted window. When you go to break your fast, again, if you're using a really large meal to break your fast, the reason why you're going to feel so tired and so exhausted is because all that blood energy that had been spread out throughout your body while you're in that fasted state now has to focus and reallocate down to working to digest the food that was just consumed. So that switch, an allocation of your blood energy to work now to focus to burn, digest, metabolize, break down, and utilize the food that you just consumed takes a lot of blood energy, especially when there was nothing and the tank was dry before. It takes a lot. So it can make you feel really tired, which is why you want to ease into your meal slowly. So when you're breaking your fast with, like I said, I personally would recommend like a handful of nuts, maybe cashews, almonds are a great choice. My preferred choice obviously is going to be a plant-based fat if you can do that. Again, nuts, take a couple spoonfuls of a good peanut butter is even a great choice too. Whatever works for you. But it shouldn't be something big and a big serving size, because again, you don't want to exhaust yourself right from the get-go. So after you break your fast with that small serving of dietary fat, I would recommend to wait anywhere from half an hour to 45 minutes, or maybe even an hour if you can push it that long. And while you're breaking your fast with that small serving of dietary fat, you definitely want to consume some water. I love having, the sparkling water because it does have that additional satiety effect that, regular water for me doesn't always have as much of. Yes, I do consume regular water, but as a little aside too, since we are talking about food this episode, for most of my journey, I would say about 2/3 of the majority of my journey, I utilized sparkling water as my primary source of hydration the whole time. And it proved successful for me. So if anybody tries to tell you, oh, you can't have carbonated water, oh, it's bad, blah, blah, blah. Honestly, like, as long as it's not any of that sweetened baloney that's out there with like the added aspartame or sucralose or any of that like sugar alcohols or added artificial sweeteners of any kind, you don't want to have those, because that can very easily, especially while you're in that fasted state, that can kind of play with your hormones and trigger a hunger response and make you feel like you have to break earlier, or make you feel just, it messes with your body chemicals, y'all. Like, don't do it. Just have your tea, your coffee, have your half and half, whatever, while you're having your coffee or tea. That's fine too. Sparkling water, there's nothing wrong with sparkling water. It's a great choice. Flat water, if that is preferred by you. So you've broken your fast. You've had your dietary fat of your choice. Half an hour, 45 minutes. If an hour you can do, cool. Tough it out. I know you can do it. Once you break your fast and you've waited that period of time and you go into your first meal, there's a couple things. I'm going to do it like twofold here. So for those that are brand new and like just getting off the ground running here, I would say make yourself consciously aware of the choices that you're eating. Obviously, this fasting lifestyle is not an excuse to go and just binge on whatever you want, hitting up the drive-thru, ordering takeout for like your first couple weeks, because realistically, if you have in the forefront of your mind the goal to better your health, to lose the weight, to make better choices long term, getting right into a fasting method and breaking your fast, even if you break your fast with a handful of nuts and you're like, oh my God, I want to order takeout and have that as my meal in the window, we're probably not setting yourself up to get off of the right foot. I wouldn't suggest that. Every once in a while, there have been instances where that has been the case for me, where if you're in a situation or circumstance and that's the only option, you can make kind of healthier choices within those constraints. But don't go for takeout or delivery or whatever in your first 2 weeks in starting this lifestyle. You're going to be much more successful if you just use your common sense. When you look in your fridge, freezer, or even when you're out grocery shopping and you're getting ready for your first 2 weeks, use your common sense. Hey, I really like broccoli. I really like cheese, or I really like this kind of combination. And think of mindful, commonsensical ways that you can combine foods that you like that are going to be a healthier choice than what you would typically go for if you have like, you're craving this kind of food or something really not as healthy for you as, maybe a slightly healthier choice, like, French fries and stuff. It's honestly like, you can have fries at home, but you can make them healthier so it works for you in your favor, So instead of getting the takeout fast food fries, make them at home. Take some potatoes, slice them up. If you have an air fryer, toss them in some oil and seasoning, and boom, you can have your fries. Like, you can have fries. There's nothing wrong with that. Make a healthier burger. If you're like, oh my God, I want burgers and fries, make them at home. There's going to be way less added junk in there when you are in control and you see the actual food being put together. And plus, it's going to make you feel good to be part of that process of, seeing the food and the preparation and just having that relationship and connection to the foods that you are making, that you're cooking. It kind of, even, if you've got folks in your home that you're worried about their eating lifestyle as well, it can kind of bring everybody together too. If you need their help, hey, chop up the cucumber. Like, we always have cucumbers for our meals most of the time. And my kids love it. They'll even fight over the cucumbers at times if I don't cut up enough of them. But having that common sense right from the gate as your fall safe for your dietary choices first, instead of thinking that you have to go crazy off the walls, keto, restrictive, counting calories and all that. No. Don't worry about it. Take a breath. Don't worry about it. You're good. You got it. Make those common sense choices. Think about the foods that you like in advance. If you're able to, make some kind of plan ahead of keep it super loose. If a lot of rigidity and structure with planning your meals in ahead of time stresses you out, do it loosely. Be like, okay, maybe Wednesday we have Italian. I don't know yet, but I'm kind of wanting something pasta-y or whatever. Honestly, you can have that too. And I'll tell you how in just a second. But planning out and just having a loose idea of what's coming ahead. It doesn't have to be exact, doesn't have to be precise, because as we know in life, there's always going to be changes along the way. There's going to be something that comes up that derails us or makes it a little bit more difficult. One of my favorite things that I like to do when I go to the grocery store is I'll find the healthier options, like the plant-based alternatives for things that are kind of a little bit more of the convenient sort, but still have that, center core element of being a healthier choice than, a less expensive but more processed kind of choice. You put the time and attention into the quality of the food that you eat. You think about that's going to be what is the fuel that's going to be providing your body with the energy that it needs to last and sustain you and take you through everything that life comes through until you break your next fast again the next day. So again, as much as, conventional society, dieting world, counting calories and all that bull, that sucks. Like, counting calories is stressful. If you're the type of person, side note, that thrives and loves counting calories and you love taking every single measurement of every food on your plate, do you? I'm not going to slam you for that, but me personally and lots of many other people that I've seen and met with in person and online, that's stressful. That's stressful as hell. And you don't got to do it. You don't got to do it. Like I said, I did not count any calories the whole time. I did not obsess about dietary choices the whole time. I kept it very common sense and just used okay, duh, a broccoli is going to be a better choice than going to get French fries from takeout. Duh, it's pretty common sense. So when you're making your food choices for your meals, and let's say like I mentioned earlier about having Italian. So say one night this week, you've got Italian planned and you're really excited, but you're really nervous and anxious about having pasta in your eating window. Folks, you don't have to stress out. Here's a little hack for you. So, especially while you're starting out, don't overly restrict. Think about ways that you can take that indulgent food that you really, really like and put a healthy twist and spin on it. Doesn't have to be 100%, Instagram worthy where it's, looks good and oh my gosh, that's so healthy. And then you go to take a bite of it and you're like, yeah, this tastes like shit. This is not good at all. This is a fail. This is fail. It doesn't have to be like that. So, for example, my kids love, and whenever in the grocery store and we pass them and we see it on the shelf in the produce section, they've got those, at least in Publix down here in Central Florida, those spaghetti squash. So I'll every once in a while get a couple of those. And those are great. Like if you're a fan of spaghetti squash, highly advocate for those. Take a couple things of spaghetti squash if they're, if your store does that like ready to cook sort of thing. Or scoop and cut your own spaghetti squash. Either one works totally fine. If you take them, open face, scoop out all the seeds, drizzle a good amount of olive oil inside with a crazy seasoning blend that you like. If you like garlic herb, that Mrs. Dash kind of combination, fill it all in there, put it in your roasting pan. I usually do it for, I think either 375 or 400, and just do it until it's soft when you have it face down and you go to touch it and it kind of gives a bit. Take them out, scrape them all out into like a big bowl, mix it with some pasta sauce of your choice. Again, make the mindful choices of what's going to be a better choice. If you like meat in your pasta sauce, maybe cook up some meatballs, or if you like, your deli sausage or whatever. Again, I don't eat meat, so I'm just pulling ideas here from what I remember years ago. You could even do plant-based sausage. You could do plant-based meatballs. You could do like grilled chicken, whatever works best for you. That spaghetti squash with your meat of choice, some kind of sauce. Throw some full-fat cheese on there. If you like that, you can do vegan cheese, whatever kind you want. Or you don't have to put any cheese at all. If that triggers you, you can do without. And that's a great meal. That's fantastic. Have a great salad on the side. And boom, there you go. As you go further and further along down the line, if you are wanting to integrate more carbohydrates in your meal, maybe because you're going to an event, a gathering where somebody has large serving of like actual spaghetti noodle pasta or lasagna or whatever other kind. I'm on like an Italian tangent here. You can have your pasta and eat it too. You don't have to overly restrict in that. The trick is with this is that, when you have your meal with your carbohydrate or starch, potato, whatever it is, have that be the last thing that you consume before your eating window closes. So if you've got a protein or a fat, maybe a really great salad or something like a precursor to your meal, appetizer, whatever, that's got some great fat, protein, fiber in there, great. Fill up and let that take up the majority of the space in your stomach. Even like the fats and proteins and fibers within the meal that you've got as well, let that take up predominantly the most amount of space, so that when you do have a few bites of your carbohydrates, pasta, potatoes, starchy, whatever it is, you don't feel like you're missing out. You feel like you were able to participate and have what everybody else is having, because it's that childish kind of hormonal response we've got within ourselves, where if we overly restrict but we see everybody else kind of participating it, we get like why can't I? And it spins, and before you know it, we're binging, derailing on something else, and then we're like back to where we started, or sometimes even worse. Let yourself participate in these events, whether it's the starchy carbohydrate, the dessert, the cookies or whatever after your meal. Fill up on what you know is going to provide and take up the most amount of space in your stomach, because realistically, when you're eating food that is like these cruciferous vegetables, these nice fibrous veggies, fill up on those, and you've got your dietary fats, you've got your fibers that are taking up a good amount of real estate in your stomach. That's going to signal, your stomach is a muscle, that's going to signal, hey, we're getting close to being full. Because I promise you, and coming from a dietary and nutritionist standpoint, when you are eating and consuming carbohydrates, which, as a side note, if I didn't say this already, never, ever, I don't like it to say like negative, but please, if you're listening to this, please don't ever break your fast with anything predominantly sugar or carbohydrate based. Across the board. Doesn't matter how long you've been fasting for. Don't do it. Because that's going to spiral and create a further kind of binge behavior, which we're trying to avoid and trying to correct long term. But when you're in that fasted state and you break your fast, fill up on the stuff that you just know is good sense for you. You know that what's a better choice and what's probably can be saved until later, until you filled up on what you need to. When you're in that time of you've eaten the majority of your meal, or all of it, and you're like, oh, I just want a couple bites of pasta, or I want some potatoes, but I don't plan on eating them all. Take a few bites. I would say, I don't like putting limits or like restrictions and stuff, but my kind of barometer is I try not to go above like 3, maybe 4, but again, they're not big bites. They're just small, like mindful bites. With every single bite that you take of these, as I like to call them, sometimes foods, be super present, guys. Be really mindful. Pay attention to the way that your whole body reacts. And this is going to sound really goofy and really weird, but the way that I can kind of describe this is I would highly, highly encourage you guys to almost tap into like a meditative kind of sense when you have these indulgent foods after you've consumed your meal. So we're creating and storing an experience file for our mind, so that when we're in future moments down the road, weeks, months, or years from now, where you get triggered by a smell, by some kind of food that you love, or a family member's major favorite, and you're trying so hard to not go off the deep end and eat the whole plate or half the plate or whatever, pull out of your memory storage bank and put in this little memory experience file. When you're in that moment, for example, my vice was always French fries. So these bites that you're taking, slow, mindful bites, yeah, just like Miss Joanne said here, slow, mindful bites, and really slowly. Don't worry about what anybody else is thinking when they're looking at you. You might you got you. Slowly, think about the way that it tastes in your mouth, rubbing your tongue to the top of your mouth as you're eating. Really savor and experience. Think about the way that you feel. Think about entirely what's going on in your mouth. The slower and more consciously aware we can be when we're in that moment of eating those indulgent foods that we usually binge on, man, you're going to pull and get so much control over those hormones when they come and spike up again, because they will. They will absolutely come back again. But you have the strength, power, and tenacity to overcome these little road bumps and hiccups of hormonal pangs and triggers. When you're being triggered, you can overcome that. You can absolutely overcome that, especially when it's food related like this. Pull out this little experience. God, I can speak today. This little experience file, plug it in, and let yourself revisit. Again, do as many experience files for your mind and body as you need. Maybe you loved pasta. Maybe you also love fries. Maybe you're a sucker for a good alcoholic, sugary beverage. Whatever your vice is, have it in a controlled kind of manner. Don't go overboard, but store the experience in your mind so fully and deeply so that you can pull it out and revisit it and use it anytime in the future that you are triggered or feel like you need to have this vice again in order to get over this craving. And you can honestly do this anywhere. There have been many times walking through the grocery store in Publix where you smell that smell of fresh bread and you're like, oh yeah. And so many times, even now, like recently, I'm going into the grocery store and you smell like all that stuff. I smell fresh bread and immediately it reminds me of walking around in Paris and having like the fresh baguette or the croissant or whatever it was. And I will like maybe not physically halt in my tracks, but mentally I'm just like, whoa, okay, pump the brakes before I make a hard right and go into the bakery section and get something that I absolutely don't need. I take a moment, breathe first off, nice deep breath, and then I take a moment and pretend that it's in my mouth. I rub my tongue to the top of my mouth, swallow my spit. Yeah, gross. Who cares? Kind of take a moment. Yep, that's good. And let yourself continue and move on. Because the more you harp and harbor and harbor and harbor and harbor, and you play that in your mind, the more your brain's going to be like, all right, girl, you did it. All right, so there it is over there. Go get it. Go buy it. You don't need to. You don't need to. Tap at this whenever you need to. And it's one of the most helpful ways that I've overcame my food cravings, triggers, smells, responses. And again, it's like fasting. It's a muscle. The more you flex it, the easier it's going to get. It's going to be easier to overcome any of these triggers or responses along the way where maybe before you didn't feel like you're in control, and maybe you're now a little bit stronger and in control now. And family members are probably going to try to, sway you and, oh, look, I made your favorite. I made cookies, whatever, bread, pie, shenanigans that you like or is your favorite. You're not as susceptible to stuffing your face and sending yourself either to the bathroom or to get sick. You don't want that. You don't want that. You have full control. You can do this. You can absolutely do this. Using common sense seems kind of silly to some. And again, like I said in the beginning, that feeling that it has to be completely perfect and to the letter. Don't go so hard on your fast. Don't go so hard on yourself when you're first starting out. I'm going to stress this again. I know I mentioned it in the beginning of the episode, but as I'm getting ready to kind of tie the episode here, I want to stress this very, very strongly again. So it's very important to be mindful and tuning in to your body. And, a lot of people won't get it, and maybe this lifestyle isn't for everybody yet. As a side, I think everybody can benefit from this at some point in their life. But there are so many elements to this where fasting as a tool implemented into your life can be so complementary to your journey. It can just really elevate the experience with the dietary choices that we make, with the lifestyle choices, in our physical activity that we make, in the mindful behavioral choices that we make. That really, it just comes down to letting your body use what's already there. Your body knows. If you've got stored body fat, weight to lose, eating all day, having something for breakfast, and then having a snack later, and then having lunch, and then having a snack before dinner, and then having dinner, and then having a dessert. Oh my gosh. Guys, if you're doing that and you're expecting to lose weight, that's tough. Like I don't want to do, nope, that's not the method for me. I know I've seen lots of people out there doing it, but this fasting lifestyle, it's just based in common sense. Like, if you need to lose weight, stop eating as much. I mean, not to be like I'm going to call it blunt, like the way that it is. You want to shed weight? Let your body shed the weight. It knows exactly what to do. If you get injured, if you cut yourself, you don't always have to get stitches. The body knows how to heal and fix what imbalances are there if we get out of our own way. And mindfully paying attention to those bodily sensations, tuning into when we're feeling triggered, when a stressful situation arises, and realizing food's not a vice. We're not dogs. We don't need to be treating food like it's a drug, because it's not. Food should be something that enriches and sustains our life. It should be complementary to the choices that we make. And again, these dietary choices don't have to be made perfect right out the gate. Don't go so hard on yourself when you're first starting out. Again, focus on the fasting and everything will just kind of come into play as secondary. It's just going to come second nature. And I want this for everybody who wants it for themselves. So thank you guys very much. This is the end of episode 7. So if you guys have any questions or need additional help or resources with supportive, mindful, encouraging coaching support from me, check out thefastingfocuslifestyle.com where my calendar is, and I'd be more than happy to help you specifically and come up with some personal approaches for you. I love celebrating you guys. I love cheering you on and letting you guys know that you don't have to be stuck at the before. You can be an after. And I've said this before to a few people recently. I feel like where I'm at, it's great, and I love being an after, but my mindset now is I feel like I'm at the top of like a VIP rooftop bar, and I want as many people up here with this party as I can. I want people to come up and just realize you can be up here too. You can be that after. You can. Time's going to pass whether you take action to better your health and situation or not. It's just a matter of making the most out of the time that we're allotted here in this physical world. So again, I want to give you guys a very big hug. Hope you have a great rest of the day. And again, I believe in you, even if you don't. All right? Bye, guys. The Fasting Focus Lifestyle, copyright 2021 by Vicki Sharon. The information given within this podcast is not intended or implied to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Please consult your doctor before starting any weight loss method. Thank you.